My greedy mother-in-law demanded that I hand over the family heirloom necklace, claiming it belonged to her as part of some so-called family tradition. I refused, standing my ground, and that's when everything spiraled out of control. In a fit of rage, she slapped my face. I stumbled, dropping to the floor and clutching my throbbing temple, while my husband just stood there frozen, watching the drama unfold and making no effort to stop her. I was filled with anger. That night, I left the house, determined to seek revenge. The next morning, when they woke up, I had a big, shocking surprise waiting for them. My name is Amanda, and at 29 years old, I was living a life that looked perfect from the outside. I owned a thriving online business in Seattle, Washington, earning $30,000 a month. My schedule was my own, my finances were secure, and by all accounts, I should have been happy. But perfection is often an illusion. I was married to Robert, a man I fell in love with during college. We shared dreams of building a future together, and for a while, I believed we were a team. But as time passed, cracks began to show. 8 months ago, Robert lost his job, and instead of searching for work or contributing to the household, he seemed content to let me carry the burden. I paid the bills, covered the mortgage, and ensured we had food on the table. Yet the more I did, the less he seemed to care. Robert's apathy was difficult to bear, but his mother, Sylvia, made life unbearable. Sylvia, in her late 50s, was domineering and entitled, constantly hovering over our lives. She had a taste for luxury and a knack for manipulation, often disguising her demands as family obligations. At first, it was small requests, money for a weekend trip, a new handbag, or a fancy dinner. Robert always urged me to comply, claiming it would keep her happy. Reluctantly, I agreed, hoping it would buy us peace. But Sylvia's greed was insatiable. Her demands grew larger with each passing month, and her presence in our lives became suffocating. Robert's silence during these moments was the ultimate betrayal. Whenever Sylvia made a demand, he avoided conflict by staying quiet, leaving me to bear the brunt of her manipulation alone. The dynamic between us began to shift. Instead of feeling like a partner, I felt like a bank account, valued only for what I could provide. One evening, as I sat in the living room watching Sylvia flip through a glossy catalog with an air of entitlement, I felt the weight of my choices. My patience was wearing thin, and I knew a storm was brewing. It started like any other evening. Sylvia was seated at the dining table, flipping through yet another luxury catalog. Her expression carried the same air of entitlement it always did, but tonight, her words carried a sharper edge. "Amanda," she said, setting the catalog down and looking at me with calculated intensity. "We need to talk about the family heirloom necklace." I stiffened. I knew exactly what she meant. An intricate gold and diamond necklace worth $12,000, gifted to me by Robert's late father shortly after our wedding. It was one of the few times I had felt truly welcomed into their family, and it held deep sentimental value. "That necklace," Sylvia continued, her tone growing more insistent, "should be in my possession. It belongs to this family, not to you. You have no right to keep it." I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Sylvia, the necklace was a gift to me from your husband. It's not just jewelry, it's meaningful. And I'm not giving it up." Her eyes narrowed, and the faint politeness in her tone disappeared. "That necklace represents this family's legacy. I don't care what you think it means to you. You're selfish if you believe you can keep something so important to yourself." I glanced at Robert, hoping for support. But as always, he sat silently, avoiding my gaze. His cowardice stung almost as much as Sylvia's words. "I'm sorry, Sylvia," I said firmly, "but I'm not giving up the necklace. My decision is final." The room fell into tense silence, broken only by Sylvia's scoff. "So that's how it is," she muttered, standing abruptly. "You think you can waltz into this family and take whatever you want without respecting tradition. You're nothing but a parasite." The words hit like a slap, but I refused to back down. "I've done more for this family than you care to admit," I said. "But this necklace is mine, and I won't let you bully me into giving it up." Sylvia's face flushed with anger, her fists clenching at her sides. I had never seen her this furious before, and I could feel the tension in the room reaching its breaking point. The argument hadn't cooled when Sylvia stormed out of the living room, muttering under her breath, leaving me with a searing headache and the cold silence of Robert's indifference. I turned to him, hoping for even a shred of support. "Robert," I said sharply, "you're just going to sit there and let her talk to me like that? Do I mean nothing to you?" He sighed, finally lifting his gaze. "Amanda, she's upset. Just let it go. It's not worth the fight." "Not worth the fight?" I repeated, incredulous. "She just called me a parasite over something that doesn't even belong to her." But he said nothing more, lowering his head like a scolded child. I could feel the betrayal swelling in my chest as tears of frustration pricked my eyes. Without another word, I left the room, heading to the kitchen to calm down and gather my thoughts. I stood at the counter, gripping the edge tightly, trying to steady my racing heart. But the reprieve was short-lived. Sylvia stormed into the kitchen moments later, her face a mask of unrestrained fury. "You think you can just dismiss me like that?" she hissed, her voice sharp as a blade. "You don't belong in this family. You never have." I turned to face her, my own anger rising. "Sylvia, I've put up with your demands and your insults for years, but this is the last time. The necklace is mine, and you will not intimidate me into giving it to you." Her face contorted with rage. She moved toward the stove where the tea pan still sat from earlier. Before I could react, she grabbed the pan and swung it toward me with both hands. The pan struck the side of my head with a sickening thud, and I stumbled back, clutching my temple as pain exploded through my skull. My vision blurred, and I felt the warmth of blood trickling down my cheeks. Dazed, I looked up to see Sylvia standing over me, the pan still in her hands, her breathing ragged. "You'll learn to respect me," she spat. I turned toward the doorway, desperate for help. Robert stood there, frozen, his face pale. But as always, he did nothing. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. That night, I packed a small bag with trembling hands. My head still throbbed from the blow, and the faint trace of dried blood on my temple was a stark reminder of how far things had gone. I couldn't believe I had let it get to this point. Sylvia's rage, Robert's indifference. It was a toxic cycle I could no longer endure. Robert hadn't even bothered to check on me after the incident. He disappeared into the bedroom, leaving me to fend for myself. That was the final betrayal. Whatever bond we once shared had been eroded by his silence and cowardice. I slipped the heirloom necklace into a padded case and tucked it securely into my bag. Sylvia's obsession with it was almost as suffocating as her presence, but I wouldn't let her take it from me. It was a gift, a symbol of respect from her late husband, and I intended to keep it. As I closed the door behind me, a mix of fear and relief washed over me. Fear of the unknown, but relief at escaping the prison that house had become. I drove to my parents' home, my vision blurred by tears yet feeling a faint flicker of hope for the first time in months. My parents were shocked to see me at their doorstep, especially with the bruises on my head. My mother gasped, pulling me into a protective hug. "Amanda, what happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. I told them everything. The years of manipulation, the endless demands, and Sylvia's violence. They listened in stunned silence, their faces a mix of sorrow and outrage. My father's jaw tightened, his fists clenching as he held back his anger. "You don't have to go back there," my mother said firmly. "You're staying here, and we'll help you figure out your next steps." For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I knew leaving was only the beginning. Sylvia and Robert wouldn't let this go without a fight, but for now, I focused on the first step, consulting a lawyer and planning my next move. I wouldn't let them take anything more from me. It was time to reclaim my life. The morning after I arrived at my parents' house, I contacted a lawyer. Her name was Sophia, and she wasted no time getting to the heart of the matter. I told her everything: the years of financial manipulation, Sylvia's relentless demands, and the assault with the tea pan. Sophia listened intently, her sharp eyes never leaving mine. "You have a strong case, Amanda," she said. "Not just for divorce, but for pressing charges against Sylvia. With the evidence of physical abuse and your financial records, You're in a solid position to protect yourself." Her words gave me hope. For too long, I had felt powerless, but now I was taking control. I provided her with text messages from Sylvia demanding money, receipts showing I had paid all household expenses, and photos of my injury. Sophia assured me we could proceed with both the divorce and a criminal case. 2 days later, Robert called. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity got the better of me. "Amanda," he said, his tone low and hesitant. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I replied coldly. "I'm filing for divorce, and I've already contacted a lawyer." "Wait," he said quickly. "I know things have gotten out of hand. Mom didn't mean to, she was just upset. We can fix this." I laughed bitterly. "Fix this, Robert?" She swung a pan at my head, and you stood there and did nothing. "Do you even hear yourself?" He stammered, searching for an excuse. "I thought staying quiet would calm her down." "You thought wrong," I said sharply. "And now there's no going back." The next day, Robert and Sylvia showed up at my parents' house unannounced, their expressions subdued, almost desperate. My mother answered the door, her protective stance making it clear they were unwelcome. "Amanda," Sylvia began, her tone saccharine and insincere. "We came to apologize. Things got heated, but we're family. Let's work this out." I stepped forward, arms crossed. "If you're serious about making amends, here's my condition. The house gets transferred to my name. Otherwise, this conversation is over." Their faces fell, but they reluctantly agreed. I knew they were buying time, but I wasn't falling for their games anymore. The following week, Robert and Sylvia arrived with legal documents to transfer the house into my name. I had Sophia review everything to ensure there were no loopholes. As I sat at the dining table, the papers spread out before me. Sylvia's simmering resentment filled the room. She said nothing, but the tightness in her jaw and the way she avoided eye contact made her feelings clear. "You're getting what you wanted," Robert said, his voice clipped. "The house will be yours.
Can we move on now?"
I glanced at him, then back at Sylvia. "This isn't just about the house. This is about ending the control you've both had over my life. I'm taking back what's mine." Sylvia couldn't hold back any longer. "You ungrateful little," she began, but Robert cut her off with a sharp look. For once, he seemed to understand that pushing me any further would backfire. I signed the documents, my hands steady and my resolve unwavering. The house was officially mine, but I wasn't stopping there. With the transfer complete, I moved forward with filing for divorce and pressing charges against Sylvia for the assault. The court date for both cases arrived a few weeks later. As I entered the courtroom, I felt a mixture of nerves and determination. Robert sat across from me, looking defeated, while Sylvia glared daggers in my direction. Sophia stood confidently by my side, ready to present the evidence. The judge reviewed the case thoroughly. Photos of my injuries, text messages demanding money, and records of my financial contributions painted a clear picture of the abuse and manipulation I had endured. Sylvia's lawyer attempted to downplay the assault, calling it a moment of frustration, but the judge wasn't convinced. After hours of testimony and arguments, the verdict was delivered. The judge granted me the divorce and upheld the transfer of the house into my name. Sylvia was ordered to pay a fine and sentenced to community service for the assault. As I left the courtroom, a weight lifted from my shoulders. I had fought for my freedom and won. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. The courthouse steps felt like a threshold to a new life. As I descended them, the crisp air filled my lungs with a sense of liberation. The fight had been long and grueling, but it was over. I had won. The house, which once symbolized control and manipulation, was now a testament to my resilience and independence. Over the following weeks, I began to rebuild my life. The first step was focusing on myself and my business. My work had always been a source of pride and fulfillment, and now, without the burden of Sylvia's constant interference and Robert's apathy, I found a renewed passion for it. My income grew steadily, and with it, my confidence. The house became my sanctuary. I redecorated it to reflect the peace and freedom I now embraced, removing every trace of Sylvia's overbearing influence. Each change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, a small but powerful victory. Support from my parents and close friends kept me grounded. They reminded me of my worth and encouraged me to embrace this new chapter with open arms. I began taking care of my physical and mental health, something I had neglected for years. Therapy sessions helped me process the trauma I had endured, allowing me to heal and grow stronger. As for Robert and Sylvia, their attempts to regain control dwindled quickly after the court's verdict. Sylvia's punishment and Robert's silent complicity had stripped them of any leverage they thought they had. I no longer feared their threats or manipulations. Reflecting on the journey, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, pride, and a touch of sadness for the years I had lost. But those years had also taught me valuable lessons: the importance of standing up for myself, recognizing my own strength, and never settling for less than I deserve. One evening, as I sat on the porch of my reclaimed home, watching the sunset, I felt a deep sense of peace. The scars of my past remained, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they were reminders of how far I had come and the power I held to shape my future. This was my beginning, a life lived on my own terms, free from toxicity and full of possibilities. If you enjoyed Amanda's journey of resilience and independence, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.